The heat hit me like a freight train the second I pushed open the trailer door. Dad's forehead was burning, skin like a skillet left too long on high. His cough tore through the stale air, a wet, grinding hack that echoed off the peeling aluminum walls of our old double-wide in Lubbock, Texas. Under the flicker of a bare bulb swinging lazy from the ceiling fan, his face glistened with sweat, eyes sunken deep, blue faded to a ghost of their old spark. I dropped my duffel, the grocery sack of Easter ham glaze and Shinerbach clunking to the linoleum, and knelt beside him. The quilt barely covered his shivering frame, thin as a shop rag. On the kitchen table, a crumpled note stared back, scrawled on a greasy diner receipt. Headed to the coast for Easter. Back Monday. Hold the fort, Dad. Brett. My brother's handwriting, cocky as ever, sliced sharper than a busted fan belt. Dad stirred, one eye cracking open.
"Siri, girl,"
he rasped, voice like gravel under tires.
"You look like you've seen a ghost."
And before we get back to the story, would you be kind enough to give this video a like? You know, every single like means a lot to me. It's the kind of encouragement that keeps me creating and bringing you even better stories tomorrow. The trailer smelled like motor oil and sickness, the kind that clings to your nose like dust on a back road. I'd hauled ass 12 hours down I-35 from Dallas, my boots still caked with site mud from a strip mall build. Serena Whitaker, 34, civil engineer, not some damsel chasing warm fuzzies for Easter. The Corps of Engineers had drilled me to spot cracks in concrete before they split wide open, but nothing prepped me for this. Dad, Harlan Whitaker, 70 years tough, laid out like a broken axle. The air was cold too, the AC unit rattling useless. No hum of his old country radio, no clank of wrenches from the backyard garage. Just that cough, relentless, and the tick of a longhorn skull clock counting down to nothing. I slung my Carhartt over the couch, its springs groaning like they'd given up years ago, and scanned the room. A plate crusted with beans sat on the counter, fork stuck in the mess like it had surrendered. A half-empty Coors bottle beside it, lip prints smudged. Brett's, no doubt. My gut twisted, a slow burn like a bad weld. I called out, voice bouncing off the walls. "Dad? Brett? Your concrete queen's back for the holiday." Silence answered, thick as West Texas dust. The cough pulled me down the hall. Dad's room was a cave, curtains drawn, air heavy with menthol and sweat. He was curled under that quilt, the one Mom stitched before she passed, its patches frayed like old promises. The thermometer on the nightstand blinked 102.3, red numbers screaming what my eyes already knew. I grabbed a dish rag, ran it under the faucet, water spitting brown at first, like the pipes were coughing too, and pressed it to his forehead. It warmed fast, his heat leaching through like asphalt in July. "Dad," I whispered, tucking the quilt tight around his shoulders, broad but shrunken, the ones that used to hoist transmissions like they were toys. His eyes fluttered, locking on mine, clearer for a second.
"Siri? Thought I was dreaming you up, girl."
His voice scraped, but that old twinkle flickered, the one that got him through Nam and 2 oil busts. "When'd you eat last?" I asked, scanning the room. Pill bottles cluttered the dresser, labels faded. Dust bunnies rolled under the bed, big as tumbleweeds.
"Yesterday, maybe. Some beans."
He winced, another cough rattling his chest like a loose manifold.
"And Brett?"
I kept my tone even, but my jaw tightened.
"Friday morning. Said he needed a breather. Beach, I reckon."
His words landed heavy, like a dropped socket wrench. I bit down hard, the note on the table flashing in my mind. Brett, my big brother, 38, oilfield sales hotshot, had peeled out for Galveston, leaving Dad to rot. I checked the thermostat. Dead. Breaker flipped. No juice. The space heater sat cold, cord chewed like a rat had a field day. Under the TV remote, a bill peeked out, stamped "Final Notice" in red ink that burned louder than a flare. I punched Mom's old number. Voicemail, her voice a decade-old echo. "Brett's cell?" Straight to his smug, "Yo, I'm closing a deal," recording. Standing by the jalousie window, staring at the empty yard where bluebonnets used to fight for life, I felt the world tilt. How does a son ditch his own blood like a junked Chevy? But the chorus kicked in. Assess, stabilize, execute. I nuked a can of chicken noodle soup, spooned it slow while Dad drifted, mumbling about carburetors and the '72 Chevy he rebuilt with his bare hands. His hand, calloused as old leather, gripped mine weak but stubborn.
Knew you'd show, Siri girl,
He said, eyes half closed.
You always keep your word, unlike some.
The words cracked something in me, a fault line I didn't know was there. The trailer was quiet now, save for the faucet's drip and that damn clock. I pulled the quilt higher, his breath evening out. Then he stirred, voice low but sharp.
Ready to roll up our sleeves, darling?
The trailer's chill bit harder as night settled, the kind of cold that creeps into your bones like rust into an old chassis. Dad's question, "Ready to roll up our sleeves, darling?" still hung in the air, a spark plug waiting for a turn. I nodded, squeezing his hand, his calluses rough as sandpaper under my palm. His eyes, fever-bright but sharp, held mine a beat longer before he drifted back to sleep. Chest rattling softer now. I stood, boots scuffing the linoleum, and headed for the breaker box in the hall. The panel was a mess. Wires tangled like a bad wiring job. Breaker flipped off like someone didn't give a damn. I flicked it on, and the old space heater coughed to life, humming weak heat into the room. The thermostat blinked awake too, but the needle barely budged. Typical Lubbock spring, teasing warmth by day, freezing your tail off by dusk. I rummaged the kitchen, the fluorescent light buzzing like a trapped fly. The pantry was a ghost town. Half a box of saltines, a can of Spam, and a jar of pickles gone cloudy. Fridge wasn't much better. Wilted lettuce, a lone Shiner Bock, and Dad's nitro pills shoved behind a crusty jar of Miracle Whip. I grabbed a can of chicken noodle from my grocery haul, popped it in the microwave. The hum filled the quiet, but my mind was stuck on that note from Brett, its words branded in my skull. Headed to the coast. Hold the fort. Like Dad was some outpost, not a man fighting a fever alone. I stirred the soup, steam curling like a faint hope, and carried it to Dad's bedside. He was awake, propped on an elbow, squinting at me like I was a blueprint he couldn't quite read.
Smells like your mama's kitchen,
he said, voice gravelly but warm, as I spooned broth past his cracked lips. 4 sips in, he coughed, a deep hack that shook his frame. I steadied the bowl, my free hand on his shoulder.
Easy, old man. Let's not flood the carburetor.
He chuckled, faint but real, the sound like a wrench tapping steel.
Always said you got her spark, Siri girl.
His eyes drifted to the quilt, Mom's handiwork, then back to me.
Brett, though, he's been running on fumes. Left Friday. Said he needed a breather. Didn't say I'd be the one holding my breath.
The words landed like a dropped bolt, heavy and sharp. I set the bowl down, my gut churning. "He didn't even check your meds?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, though it wanted to crack. Dad's lips tightened, a flicker of something, shame, maybe, crossing his face.
Reckon I ain't the priority no more. Old parts don't fetch much at auction.
His gaze dropped to his hands, veins like hydraulic lines under weathered skin.
Used to think I'd built something solid. Family, you know. But Brett, he's been taking more'n he's given lately.
I swallowed the lump in my throat, the kind that feels like you've got gravel stuck sideways.
How long's he been pulling this?
Months, maybe? He coughed again, weaker.
Started small, borrowing for gas, beers. Then it was my card bouncing at the pharmacy. Ain't just the money, Siri. It's knowing I'm the spare tire he don't need.
The air went tight, like the trailer itself was holding its breath. I grabbed his hand, his grip frail but stubborn. "You're no spare, Dad. You're the damn engine." His eyes lit, just a flicker, and I knew, whatever Brett had done, we were going to torque this back into place. I cleared the bowl, my mind racing like a V8 on open road. Back in the kitchen, I started digging. The counter was a landfill, unopened mail, a greasy socket wrench, and that damn note still glaring from the table. I flipped through the pile. Electric bill, stamped past due, in red ink that screamed louder than a siren. Water bill, same story. Then, tucked under a Whataburger flyer, a pharmacy receipt, Dad's antibiotics, dated October 24, expired months ago. My stomach flipped like a bad weld. Brett hadn't just bailed, he'd left Dad to rust. I opened a drawer, half expecting roaches to scatter. Instead, a cigar box, heavy with promise. Inside, a mess of papers, a hospital copay stub, $450, unpaid, a bank notice, balance $87.12, and then, like a punch to the gut, a receipt from a Galveston resort. Ocean View Suite, 2 nights, $2,200, charged to B. Whitaker. Time-stamped Friday, the day Dad's fever spiked. Next to it, an ATM slip, $800 yanked from Dad's savings, same day. I sank into a chair, the Formica table cold under my elbows, piecing the skid marks. Brett hadn't just taken a weekend, he'd drained Dad's tank to fund it. My mind flashed to a summer long gone. I was 10, knobby-kneed, watching Dad under the hood of his old F-150. He'd handed me a wrench, too big for my hands, and said, "Siri girl, fixin' ain't just bolts. It's keeping things running for folks you love." I'd grinned, grease smudged on my cheek, while Brett, 13, leaned against the garage, sneaking Mom's lemonade. He'd been my hero then, the big brother who'd tighten my bike chain when it slipped. Now? He was the guy who'd sell the whole damn truck for a joyride. The screen door creaked, snapping me back. Jimmy Delgado shuffled in, all flannel and oil-stained cap, a toolbox swinging from his hand. He'd worked Dad's garage back in the day before arthritis sidelined him to odd jobs and porch gossip.
"Heard you was back, Serena,"
he said, voice like a worn clutch.
"Harlan holding up?"
"Barely," I said, nodding toward Dad's room. "Fever's high and Brett's AWOL." Jimmy's jaw tightened, eyes flicking to the note on the table.
"Seen that coming. Caught him last month, loading Harlan's old Chevy onto a flatbed. Said it was for repairs. Turned up sold. Cash pocketed. Your daddy didn't say boo. Too proud, I reckon."
My fists clenched, nails biting palms. He sold the Chevy? Dad's pride, the one he'd rebuilt from a junkyard skeleton.
"Yep."
Jimmy set his toolbox down, heavy as the truth.
"Didn't tell Harlan till the deed was done. Broke him, quiet-like."
I stared at the Galveston receipt, the ATM slip, the unpaid bills. The math was ugly, and it wasn't just dollars. Brett had stripped Dad's dignity, piece by piece, like pulling wires from a live circuit. I grabbed a notepad from my duffel, started jotting, dates, amounts, the bones of a betrayal. Jimmy watched, quiet, then clapped my shoulder.
"You're Harlan's steel, girl. He always said so."
I nodded, throat tight.
"Gonna need more than steel for this fix."
He tipped his cap, heading out.
"Start with the truth. Rest'll follow."
Alone again, I checked Dad. He was dozing, quilt tucked to his chin, the heater's hum a faint comfort. The clock ticked past midnight, each second a countdown. Brett might think he could bury this under beach sand, but I was done letting him coast. I slipped the receipt into my pocket, evidence one. Whatever came next, we'd wrench this back, methodical, no shortcuts. Dad's words echoed, soft but ironclad. Roll up our sleeves. The trailer's quiet, was a liar, heavy with the hum of the space heater and the faint tick of that longhorn skull clock, each second a nudge toward reckoning. Jimmy's words, "Start with the truth," clung to me like grease under fingernails as I stood over the kitchen table. The Galveston receipt and ATM slip staring up like evidence at a crime scene. Dad's cough, softer now, drifted from his room, a reminder he was still in the fight. I clutched the notepad, my scribbled dates and dollar amounts a map of Brett's betrayal, and felt the weight of Dad's challenge. Roll up our sleeves. The truth wasn't just a spark. It was a torch, and I was ready to light it. Morning light sliced through the mini blinds, turning dust motes into flecks of gold. I brewed coffee black as motor oil, the Mr. Coffee gurgling like it was on its last legs. Dad was awake, propped on pillows, sipping the tea I'd made. Herbal, no caffeine, per the pharmacy's orders. His color was better, less like boiled crawfish, but his eyes still held that fevered glint. "You diggin' for gold, Siri girl?" he rasped, nodding at the cigar box I'd hauled to his bedside, its contents spilling like a busted toolbox. Hospital stubs, bank notices, a crumpled pawn shop ticket. "More like digging for answers," I said, sifting through the mess. My fingers snagged a hospital copay stub, $620, unpaid, dated 2 months back. Then a bank letter, crisp and accusing. Account overdraft, $112.43. Tucked beneath, a printed email from Brett's work account, sent to himself like a memo. Moved $1,500 from Dad's savings for truck payment. He won't notice. My stomach lurched, a cold twist like stepping on a rusted nail. I held it up, voice tight. "He's been bleeding you dry, Dad." His gaze hardened, blue eyes like a blowtorch flame. "Ain't just the green, Serena. It's the trust he's been torching." He coughed, weaker now, but his jaw set firm. "I ain't some junker to be scrapped. We take my pride back. Start with the truth, like always." His words hit like a sledgehammer, steady and sure. I nodded, throat tight. "We'll build the case, piece by piece, no shortcuts." He gave a faint grin, the kind that used to mean we'd spend all Saturday under a hood, wrenching a dead engine back to life. I dove into the trailer like it was a site inspection gone rogue. The living room was a paper trail of neglect, a stack of mail under the TV, envelopes slid open, some not. A water bill, $89, overdue. A notice from Social Security. Dad's vet benefits, unclaimed since Mom passed, gathering dust like a forgotten promise. In the kitchen, a drawer jammed with junk yielded a manila folder labeled taxes. Inside, a bombshell, a loan agreement, $15,000 secured against the trailer. Dad's name scrawled in a signature that wasn't his. Time-stamped 3 weeks ago, same week Brett bought that Galveston getaway. My hands shook as I read the fine print. Default notice, 30 days to settle or property seized. The trailer, Dad's last stand, Mom's bluebonnet patch out front. It was all on the chopping block. I slumped at the Formica table, the loan papers fanned out like a bad hand of poker. My mind flashed to an Easter years back, maybe 98, the 4 of us piled in the F-150, headed to Grandma's in Abilene. Brett, 16, cocky behind aviators, had rigged the radio to blast Merle Haggard, and when the tire blew, he'd helped Dad swap it on the shoulder, both of them laughing through the sweat. I was a kid, passing tools, feeling like part of the crew. Brett had been my hero then, the big brother who'd sneak me extra pie when Mom wasn't looking. Now he was forging Dad's name, gambling the roof over his head. The memory stung, a dull ache like a bruise you keep pressing. Could I turn him in? Drag my own brother through the mud? Maybe to a courtroom? The thought churned, heavy as wet concrete. I grabbed my phone, pulled up Dad's ancient desktop in the corner, whirring like a tired V8. The screen flickered to life. Wallpaper a faded Polaroid of Dad and Mom at the Alamo, all grins and denim. His email was a mess, spam clogging the inbox, but I filtered for Brett's name. Jackpot, a thread from last month, Brett to his buddy. Dad's account covers the lease. He's out of it half the time. Won't see a dime missing. Another 2 weeks back. Pushed his doc visit. Resort's non-refundable. He'll manage. Each word was a spark to kindling, my anger flaring hot. I printed them, the inkjet whining like it knew the weight of the words. Back in Dad's room, he was staring at the ceiling, fan blades chopping shadows. "Find the dirt?" he asked, voice low but steady. "Enough to fill a quarry," I said, showing him the loan papers. His face didn't flinch, just tightened, like he'd been bracing for the hit. "Boy's been playing fast and loose," he said. "But this," he tapped the forged signature. "This ain't just loose, it's larceny." I sat on the bed's edge, the springs creaking. "We could lose this place, Dad. 30 days. He nodded, slow, eyes distant. "Then we don't just sit on the truth. We shine it, bright and ugly. For me, for every old-timer left idling." His resolve was steel, the kind that built this trailer from a patch of dirt. I opened my notepad, started logging. Dates, withdrawals, the forged loan, each entry a brick in the case. My core training kicked in. Document every load, every stress point, no weak links. But that memory of Brett, tire iron in hand, laughing with Dad, kept nagging. Could I bury him with this? The question hung, unanswered, as I scribbled. Outside, a prairie wind rattled the awnings, dust devils dancing in the yard. Dad's hand found mine, grip weak but sure. "You're my rebar, Siri girl. Always were." I squeezed back, the notepad heavy in my lap. "Then let's pour the foundation." Giai đoạn duy nhất cần Việt lần này. Phase it, P4, cụ thể. Phase it, P4. Title, Community Allies, Word Count Range. Min, 900, Max, 1100. Focus, Serena tìm kiếm sự hỗ trợ từ cộng đồng, củng cố bằng chứng và tình cảm với Dad. Content. Serena gặp Mrs. Carter tại trung tâm y tế, nhận thông tin về sức khỏe Dad và hướng dẫn pháp lý. Jimmy giúp sửa lò sưởi, kể về lần Brett bán xe Dad, cung cấp bằng chứng bổ sung. Dad kể thêm ký ức về Mom, làm sâu sắc cảm xúc gia đình. Upgrade strategies. Notes, làm phong phú bối cảnh cộng đồng và tăng chiều sâu cảm xúc. Items. Additional characters. Mrs. Carter chia sẻ câu chuyện cá nhân về việc bị con cái bỏ rơi, làm nổi bật thông điệp chung. Subplot. Serena và Jimmy nhóm lò sưởi trong cơn bão nhỏ, làm tăng áp lực và tình cảm cộng đồng. Theta policy. Required. Falls. When required. E. Examples. Start. Theta AE. And theta estimated time in minutes range. Min 5.1, max 7. Purpose. Mở rộng bối cảnh qua nhân vật phụ, làm rõ tầm quan trọng của cộng đồng trong việc hỗ trợ Dad. Refinements. Kết nối với nội dung cuối của giai đoạn 3 đã viết, đảm bảo chuyển cảnh tự nhiên. The stars pricked sharp through the trailer's window, the night air settling cool and quiet after the squall's tantrum. Dad's words, truth first, then grace, echoed in my head as I stacked Mrs. Carter's forms and Jimmy's receipt on the kitchen table, the pile growing like a foundation for something bigger than anger. The furnace hummed steady now, thanks to Jimmy, its warmth curling around Dad's snores down the hall. I sipped cold coffee, the notepad open, my pen tracing the edges of Brett's betrayal. The forged loan, the sold Chevy, the drained savings. The blueprint was taking shape, but Dad's call for grace nagged like a loose bolt I couldn't tighten. My phone buzzed, screen lighting up with Brett's name. My pulse kicked like a misfired piston.
Hey, sis.
Messed up bad. Cutting the trip short. Back tonight to make it right. The text glowed, simple but heavy, like a tow truck pulling up just when you thought you were stranded. For a split second, hope flickered. Maybe Brett had seen the skid marks, felt the weight of leaving Dad to rust. I leaned back in the chair, the Formica cool against my elbows, picturing him pulling into the drive, tail between his legs, ready to fix the mess. Could we patch this without torching what was left of us? If you're raging for Dad right now, hit like to fuel our fight. I shook it off, refocusing. Hope was a lousy engineer. It ignored stress points. I stood, stretching, and started tidying the living room to keep my hands busy. The coffee table was a junkyard. Old hot rod magazines, a cracked ashtray, and a shoebox tucked under a stack of unpaid bills. Curious, I pried it open, expecting more receipts. Instead, a single letter, folded neat, in Dad's shaky scrawl. My name on the front, dated 3 weeks back. Heart pounding, I unfolded it, the paper soft as old denim. "Serena, my rebar girl," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm likely laid up. Brett's been taken, money, time, trust. But he's still my boy, your brother. I forgive him. Let this go, darling. Family's the only rig worth saving." The words blurred as my eyes stung, a lump rising like wet gravel in my throat. Dad's heart, big as a V8, offering grace when Brett didn't deserve it. I clutched the letter, imagining him penning it alone, fevered, while Brett partied on the Gulf. For a moment, I wanted to fold it back, call off the hunt, honor Dad's wish. Maybe this was the fix. Let Brett slide, keep the family chassis intact. I paced to Dad's room, letter in hand, his snores steady under the quilt's patchwork. The lamp cast soft shadows, glinting off a photo on the nightstand. Me, Dad, and Mom, Easter '95, grinning over a spread of ham and cornbread. Brett was there too, teenage smirk, sneaking a beer. Family, flawed but whole. I sat on the bed's edge, the springs creaking, and reread the letter. Something was off. Dad's handwriting, usually tight as a torque spec, wobbled like he'd been drunk or worse. I checked the date again. 3 weeks ago. Same day Mrs. Carter said he'd spiked a fever so bad he couldn't stand. My gut twisted, the kind of churn you get when a beam's off plumb. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the health center's portal. Dad's records loaded slow, the trailer's Wi-Fi wheezing like an old carburetor. There it was. ER visit, high fever, delirium noted. He'd been out of it, barely coherent. No way he wrote that letter clear-headed. I flipped back to the shoebox, digging deeper. Found a sticky note in Brett's scrawl. Dad's note, keep safe. Don't let S see. The realization hit like a snapped timing belt. Brett had leaned on him, fever-sick and vulnerable, to scribble a get-out-of-jail card. Not forgiveness. Manipulation. My hands shook, the letter crumpling in my fist. The hope from Brett's text burned out, replaced by a cold fury, sharp as a stripped bolt. I strode to the kitchen, slapped the letter onto the evidence pile. Loan papers, receipts, emails. This wasn't just neglect. It was a calculated gut punch. Brett wasn't coming back to fix anything. He was covering his tracks, banking on Dad's grace and my soft spot to dodge the fallout. I opened my notepad, pen flying. Letter, coerced, delirium. Brett's play to bury evidence. The case wasn't just solid now, it was reinforced concrete. Dad stirred, coughing soft. "Siri, girl?" His voice was a whisper, eyes half open, glinting in the lamplight. "You look like you're fixin' to tear down a wall." "More like building one," I said, voice steady but burning. "Brett's not just running, he's rigging the game." He nodded, slow, no surprise in his face. "Then keep pouring the truth. Don't let him spin the wheels off this." I tucked the quilt around him, my resolve hardening like a fresh slab. Brett could text all the apologies he wanted. Words were cheap as rusted bolts. The truth was in the paper trail, and I'd lay it bare when he rolled in. Outside, the night hummed, stars steady, waiting for the next spark. The stars outside the trailer burned cold and steady, but inside, my blood ran hot. The crumpled letter from Dad, coerced in his fevered haze, still clenched in my fist. Brett's text, that empty promise to make it right, was just another dodge, a slick coat of paint over rusted steel. Dad's words cut through the quiet, his voice faint but ironclad. Keep pouring the truth. I smoothed the letter onto the evidence pile. Loan papers, receipts, emails, and felt the weight of his trust settle like a fresh-poured slab. The clock ticked past 2 a.m., the longhorn skull glaring from the wall, and I knew the next move wasn't just paperwork. It was time to let Dad's voice roar. I grabbed my phone, its camera lens glinting under the kitchen's harsh fluorescence, and hauled it to Dad's room. He was awake, propped on pillows, the quilt tucked tight. The furnace hummed, casting a warm glow on his face, color creeping back but eyes still sharp with fever's edge.
What's the play, Siri girl?
He asked, voice like gravel over a shop floor.
Time to go on record,
I said, setting the phone on a tripod scavenged from the closet, an old relic from Mom's photography days.
Your story, your words, let the truth do the heavy lifting.
He nodded, slow, a faint grin cracking his beard.
Like testifying in church, huh? Lay it bare.
I hit record, the red light winking like a warning. Dad sat straighter, shoulders squaring like he was facing a judge.
Name's Harlan Whitaker,
he began, voice steady despite the rasp.
70 years, grease under my nails, heart still ticking. Raised 2 kids on sweat and promises. Serena, my rock, and Brett, my boy who lost his way. He left me here, coughing blood, while he chased waves in Galveston. Took my savings, my truck, my name on a loan I didn't sign. Ain't just money he stole. It's the faith I poured into him. But here's the thing. Love ain't a debt you settle. It's choosing to show up day in, day out, even when the tank's dry. I'm still here, choosing. For every old-timer left to rust, this is my truth. We're worth the haul.
His words landed like a hammer on steel, each one forging something unbreakable. I stopped the recording, throat tight, eyes stinging. That's it, Dad. That's the foundation. He leaned back, winded but fierce.
Good. Now don't let it sit in a drawer.
I sat on the bed's edge, the springs creaking, replaying his words in my head. But a memory snagged, sharp and unbidden. Brett, maybe 12 years back, slipping me a birthday gift. A tiny wrench keychain engraved with Siri girl, keep tightening. He'd grinned, all big brother swagger, and I'd carried it through college, the course, every site inspection. Now it sat in my duffel, tarnished like his promises. Was I too hard on him? Dragging him through this, Dad's video, the loan, the law, could snap what little family we had left. My stomach churned, a fault line between justice and blood. Dad's hand found mine, calluses rough but warm.
Don't go soft now, Serena. Truth ain't cruel. It's clearing the rust so we can run again.
I nodded, swallowing the doubt. You're right. No half measures. Back in the living room, I fired up Dad's ancient desktop, the fan whining like a tired engine. The email inbox was still a mess, but I dug deeper, filtering for Brett's name. A new hit. An email from yesterday, Brett to his girlfriend Tara. Dad's out of it. Pushed the doc visit again. Resorts paid, no refunds. Chill, we're golden. My jaw clenched, the screen's glow burning my eyes. He wasn't just neglecting Dad. He was banking on him fading, covering tracks with every keystroke. I printed it, the inkjet's screech matching my pulse, and added it to the stack. Loan papers, receipts, the coerced letter, now this. The case wasn't just tight, it was a vault. I texted Lena Torres, my old core buddy turned JAG consultant, attaching the video and new email. Evidence locked. Need next steps. APS? DA? Whatever it takes. Her reply pinged fast. Got it. Solid as rebar. I'll draft the complaint tomorrow. Stay steady. I exhaled, the trailer's quiet pressing in, the evidence pile a tower of truth on the table. Dad's cough echoed soft from the hall, a reminder of the stakes. I checked on him, his eyes closed, breathing even. The video's weight, his voice, sat heavy in my chest. Not just evidence, but a testament. Brett's reckoning was coming, and I'd be the one turning the wrench. The trailer's quiet felt fragile, like a cracked windshield holding against a storm. Dad's video, his voice raw and unyielding, looped in my head. A steel rebar tying the evidence stack together. Loan papers, receipts, that damning email from Brett to Tara. Lena's text, solid as rebar, glowed on my phone, a lifeline in the dark. I checked Dad again, his breathing steady under the quilt. The furnace's hum a small victory. But outside, the night turned mean. Wind howling across the Lubbock Flats, rattling the trailer like a loose bolt. A low rumble of thunder growled, and the lights flickered, then died, plunging us into black. The furnace whined to a stop, cold creeping back like a thief. Damn it, I muttered, grabbing a flashlight from the kitchen drawer, its beam slicing through the dark. Dad stirred, coughing sharp.
Siri girl, power out again?
Yeah, storm's kicking up. I yanked my Carhartt on, the air already biting.
Stay put, I'll get the fire going.
The flashlight caught his nod, eyes glinting with that old mechanic's grit. I hauled logs from the porch, rain spitting through the screen door, wind tearing at my sleeves. The sky was a bruise, clouds churning like oil in a bad crankcase. I knelt by the fireplace, kindling stacked, when the door banged open. Jimmy, soaked to the bone, toolbox swinging.
Saw the blackout from my place,
He said, shaking rain from his cap.
Harlan okay?
Cold and coughing, I said, striking a match.
Furnace is down, breaker's fried.
The kindling caught, flames licking slow, casting shadows on the wood-paneled walls. Jimmy crouched beside me, pulling tools, a wrench, a screwdriver, like they were extensions of his hands.
This old beast needs a kick,
he said, prying open the furnace panel.
Clogged vents, loose wires, same as last time.
We worked fast, me feeding logs while he rewired under the flashlight's beam, rain hammering the roof like a jackhammer. The fire grew, heat pushing back the chill, but my mind was on Dad, shivering in the next room. This storm's bad timing, I said, voice tight. He's too weak for this. Jimmy's hands paused, eyes meeting mine, steady as a torque wrench.
Reminds me of '92, when I left my old man in Odessa. Sick, no heat, me chasing oil field jobs. Thought I'd send money back, never did. Found him gone a year later, too late to fix.
His voice cracked, raw as the wind.
Don't let that be you and Harlan. You're here, fightin'. That's what counts.
His words hit like a dropped hammer, heavy with regret. I nodded, throat tight, and tossed another log on. Brett's not here. Never is. The fire popped, sparks dancing.
You got more on him?
Jimmy wiped his brow, rain and sweat mixing.
Just what I told you. Sold the Chevy, left Harlan walking. But I'll stand witness if you need. Truth's a hard fix, but it holds.
The furnace sputtered, then roared, heat flooding back. We stood, fists bumping soft. A pact sealed in grease and grit.
Thanks, Jimmy. You're keeping us running.
He tipped his cap, heading out.
Keep the fire stoked, Serena. For Harlan.
Inside, I dragged a chair to Dad's bedside, the flashlight's glow softening his face. He was awake, quilt pulled high, eyes distant.
Storm's like 85,
He said, voice low.
Your mom and me. No power, no money. Oil bust gutted us. Brett was a kid, sulking this, 'cause we couldn't afford new boots. We huddled here, same fireplace, telling stories about better days. Kept us warm. Kept us whole.
He coughed, weaker now, but his gaze locked on mine.
Brett's forgot that. Family's what you fight through storms for, not what you run from.
I squeezed his hand, the memory sharp. Mom's laugh, Brett's pout, Dad's arm around us all. Now it was just us, and the weight of Brett's absence felt heavier than the storm. We're fighting this one, Dad. Got your video, the papers, Jimmy's word. Lena's on board. His grin was faint but fierce.
That's my girl. Build it tight.
I pulled my phone, texting Lena under the firelight.
Storm's a mess, but evidence is locked.
What's the legal timeline?
Her reply pinged fast. APS complaint drafted. DA's office next. Elder fraud's a felony. Brett's back soon. Prep for confrontation.
I exhaled, the fire's crackle steadying my pulse.
The evidence was ironclad. Forged loan, stolen savings, Dad's testimony. But Dad's story of 85 lingered, a reminder of what family could be and what Brett had broken. Outside, the storm raged, rain lashing the windows, but the trailer held, warm and defiant. I tucked the quilt tighter around Dad, his breathing easing. The confrontation loomed, a high noon I couldn't dodge. Brett would roll in, all charm and excuses, but the truth was set, and I'd be the one holding the wrench. The storm had blown itself out by dawn, leaving a soggy calm over Lubbock, the trailer warm from the fire Jimmy and I had stoked. Dad's breathing was steady, his cough softer, but the weight of Lena's text, prep for confrontation, sat heavy as a loaded toolbox. The evidence stack on the kitchen table loomed, forged loan, stolen savings, Dad's video, each piece a brick in the wall I'd built. Brett's reckoning was coming, and as I sipped cold coffee, the crunch of gravel under tires snapped my head up. Headlights cut through the morning haze. A black F-150 pulling in. Brett's truck, waxed to a smug shine. My pulse kicked like a jackhammer, but I set my mug down, slow and deliberate. Time to turn the wrench. The screen door squeaked, and Brett strode in, all oil-field swagger. Boots polished, aviators perched on his head like he'd just closed a deal. Tara trailed behind, blonde hair pulled back, her smile tight as she carried a plastic bag of Whataburger. "Sis!" Brett called, voice loud enough to wake the neighbors. Heard you were playing nurse. How's the old man?
He dropped the bag on the counter, the smell of fries clashing with the trailer's stale air, and leaned against the fridge like he owned the place. I crossed my arms, standing by the table, the evidence pile in plain sight. He's been better. Fever, no meds, no heat. You want to tell me where you've been while Dad's coughing up a lung? Brett's grin faltered, just a flicker, but he recovered, tossing Tara a wink.
Galveston, quick getaway. Needed a breather, you know? Oil game's brutal.
He stepped toward Dad's room, but I blocked the hall, boots planted. Breather? My voice was low, sharp as a stripped bolt.
You left him to rot, Brett. No food, no meds, bills piling up. You call that family?
Tara shifted, eyes darting to the floor, but Brett laughed, a hollow bark.
Whoa, easy, Siri girl. You been in Dallas too long, getting dramatic. Dad's tough, been through worse. I grabbed the evidence stack, slamming it on the table. Tough enough to handle you draining his savings, selling his Chevy, forging his name on a $15,000 loan that's got this trailer on the chopping block?
Each word landed like a hammer, and Brett's jaw tightened, aviators sliding down to hide his eyes.
Loan. What are you talking about?
He stepped closer, voice dropping, all charm gone.
You digging through my business now?
Your business? I snatched the loan agreement, holding up the forged signature. This is Dad's name, Brett. You put his home, Mom's home, at risk for a beach weekend. Tara flinched, clutching the Whataburger bag like a shield, but I kept my eyes on Brett. And this... I pulled the Galveston receipt, $2,200, while Dad couldn't afford his pills. Brett's face reddened, but he leaned in, voice a hiss. You don't get it, Serena. Oil's tanked. Quotas are hell. I needed a win, okay? Dad's fine. Always has been. You're blowing this out of proportion. I turned to the TV, an old flat-screen Dad won at a VFW raffle, and plugged in my phone.
Fine. Let's hear it from him.
I hit play, and Dad's voice filled the room, raw and steady. Brett took my savings, my truck, my name. Ain't just money he stole. It's the faith I poured into him. The video rolled, Dad's face pale but fierce, laying out every betrayal. Galveston, the loan, the neglect. Tara's eyes widened, hand covering her mouth, while Brett stood frozen, fists clenched.
That's low, Serena,
he snapped, voice cracking.
Using Dad like some courtroom prop? He's confused, sick.
Confused? I cut him off, tossing the printed emails onto the table. You wrote this to Tara.
Dad's out of it, resort's paid. You pushed his doctor visit for a damn suite. Explain that.
Brett paced, aviators off now, eyes darting like a cornered coyote.
Okay, look, I borrowed some cash. Yeah, times are tight, clients ghosting, deals falling through.
Dad's got his pension, his VA stuff.
I was gonna pay it back.
Pay it back? I stepped closer, voice rising like a revving engine.
With what? The $800 you yanked from his ATM? Or the $3,000 from his Chevy?
I slapped Jimmy's receipt down, the bill of sale glaring.
You sold his heart, Brett, and this,
I held up the forged loan,
puts us 30 days from losing this roof. You gonna pay that back too?
Tara's voice broke through, small but sharp.
Brett, you said it was just a loan for the truck.
Her eyes searched his, but he waved her off, turning on me.
Don't lecture me, Serena. You're off building strip malls, leaving me to deal with Dad's doctor runs, his whining. I'm drowning here.
His voice cracked, and for a second I saw the brother who'd fixed my bike chain, who'd laughed with Dad over a busted carburetor. My resolve wavered, a hairline crack. Could stress really break him this far? Then why not ask for help? I said, softer, but the evidence burned in my hand. Why forge his name? Why leave him with no heat, no meds? Brett sank into a chair, head in his hands. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Thought I'd fix it before he noticed. Before he noticed? My anger flared back, hot as a welding torch. He's not a mark, Brett. He's Dad. And you let him waste away while you played big shot. Tara stepped forward, voice trembling. Serena, I didn't know it was this bad. He told me it was temporary, that Harlan agreed. Agreed? I spun on her, but her eyes were wet, hands twisting the bag. I stopped, breath catching. Maybe she wasn't in on it. But Brett? He was out of moves. Dad's cough echoed from the hall, weak but piercing, like a signal flare. I turned back to Brett. The video paused on Dad's face, resolute. This isn't over, I said, voice low. You're gonna face this. Every dollar, every lie. I grabbed the evidence, my hand steady despite the storm in my chest. Brett's eyes met mine, no swagger left, just a flicker of something. Shame, maybe, or fear. The trailer fell silent. The furnace's hum, the only sound. But the air was thick with what came next. Brett wasn't dodging this, not anymore. The trailer's air hung thick, the furnace's hum a low pulse under the silence that followed my words to Brett. This isn't over. His face, stripped of its oil-field swagger, was a cracked engine block. No excuses left, just raw defeat. The TV screen still glowed with Dad's paused video, his eyes boring into the room like a verdict. Tara stood frozen by the counter, the crumpled Whataburger bag in her hands, her eyes darting between Brett and me, wet with something I couldn't read. Guilt, maybe, or fear. My hands gripped the evidence stack. Forged loan, receipts, emails, Dad's testimony. Each piece a hammer ready to drop. But the weight of Dad's earlier words, truth first, then grace, tugged at me. A loose wire sparking doubt. Could I push this to the law and still call us family? Tara's voice broke the quiet, small but sharp, like a socket wrench clicking into place. Serena, wait! She stepped forward, dropping the bag, her hands trembling as she reached into her purse. There's something you need to see. She pulled out a USB drive, plain black, the kind you'd miss in a junk drawer. Her eyes flicked to Brett, then back to me, steady now. I didn't know it was this bad. He said it was just a loan, temporary. But I tried to fix it, tried to send money back to Harlan's account. Brett's head snapped up, eyes wide. Tara, don't. Shut up, Brett! Her voice cracked, raw and fierce, cutting him off like a snapped fan belt. She turned to me, holding out the USB. Last month, I wired $500 from my savings to Harlan's account. Brett found out, said I was meddling, threatened to cut me off, bank cards, rent, everything. I saved the texts. They're on here. I took the drive, my pulse racing like a revved V8. You're saying you tried to help Dad? My voice was skeptical, but her face, pale, eyes brimming, held no lie. I grabbed Dad's old laptop, the fan wheezing as it booted, and plugged in the USB. A folder popped up, screenshots of texts dated 6 weeks back. Tara to Brett. Sent $500 to your dad's account. He needs it for meds. Brett's reply. Undo it. Now. You don't call the shots. Another. Later. Mess with my plan again, and you're out. No roof, no cash. My stomach twisted. The words cold as a stripped bolt. Tara hadn't just been complicit. She'd been cornered. Brett slumped in the chair, hands raking his hair. Tara, why the hell? His voice broke, not anger now, just a hollow rattle, like an engine running on fumes. He looked at me, eyes pleading for the first time. Sis, I was in deep. Debts, quotas. I didn't mean to hurt him. Didn't mean to? I snapped, slamming the laptop shut. You forged his name, Brett. Stole his truck, his savings, his dignity. And now you're bullying her to keep quiet? I pointed at Tara, who stood rigid, arms crossed, tears streaking her mascara. The room felt smaller, the evidence pile a towering indictment. Dad's cough echoed from the hall, weak but piercing, pulling me back to his words about Grace. I paced, the linoleum creaking under my boots. Part of me wanted to call Lena, file the complaint now. Elder fraud, felony charges, let Brett face the gavel. But another part, softer, remembered Dad's letter, even if coerced. Family's the only rig worth savin'. Was there a way to fix this without breaking us for good? The screen door banged open, Lena stepping in, her Jag briefcase swinging, her face all business under a tight bun. Serena, got your texts. Evidence is airtight. DA's ready to move on fraud and neglect. She glanced at Brett, then Tara, sizing up the room like a site inspector. This him? Yeah, I said, voice steady but heavy. And this? I handed her the USB. Tara's proof. She tried to make it right. Lena's eyes narrowed, scanning Brett, who shrank under her gaze. "That true?" she asked Tara. Tara nodded, voice low. "I should have done more. I'm sorry, Serena." Lena popped the USB into her tablet, scrolling fast. "This changes the angle. Brett, you're looking at coercion on top of fraud. DA won't go light." She turned to me, voice firm. "Serena, we file today. It's a slam dunk. But it's your call, legal or family fix." Brett's head dropped, hands clasped like he was praying to a god he'd long ignored. "Sis, I'll pay it back. Every cent, just don't do this." I stared at him. The brother who'd once carved my initials into a toolbox, now a stranger who'd pawned Dad's life for a beach view. Dad's voice echoed, truth first, then grace. But the truth was a blade, and grace felt like letting go of a rope. I clutched the evidence, my resolve wavering, then hardening. "You don't get to beg your way out, Brett. Not yet." Lena nodded, snapping her briefcase shut. "I'll prep the forms. You've got till tomorrow to decide. Court or compromise." The trailer fell quiet, the furnace's hum a faint heartbeat. Tara's eyes met mine, a flicker of alliance, her stand shifting the ground under Brett. He was cornered, no charm left to sell. The next move was mine, and it hung heavy, a blueprint still unfolding. The trailer's silence was heavy, Lena's briefcase snapping shut like a judge's gavel as she left. Her words, court or compromise, hanging in the air. Brett sat slumped, head in hands, no trace of his oil-field swagger, just a man staring down the barrel of his own mistakes. Tara stood by the counter, her eyes meeting mine, a quiet strength in her nod, the USB of her texts a lifeline that had shifted the ground. Dad's cough echoed soft from the hall, a reminder of what was at stake. His voice from the video, truth first, then grace, tangled with the forged letter's plea. "Family's the only rig worth savin'." I gripped the evidence stack, loan papers, receipts, emails, Dad's testimony. My anger still hot, but something softer stirred, a crack in the concrete. Could I bury Brett in court and still call us kin? The question burned as I faced him, his eyes pleading, raw. "I'm not filing," I said, voice low but steady, the words surprising even me. Brett's head snapped up, Tara's breath catching. "Not because you deserve it, Brett, because Dad asked for peace, and I'm honoring that." I set the evidence down, deliberate, like laying a foundation. "But this isn't a free pass. You broke him, and you're gonna rebuild." Brett nodded, slow, like a man pulling himself from a wreck. "Anything, sis. I swear." Tara stepped forward, voice soft but sure. "I'm in too, whatever it takes." Her eyes held mine, no longer the bystander, but a partner in the fix. By noon, the trailer smelled of sawdust and hope. Brett hauled in a toolbox from his truck, the same one Dad used to teach him torque, and started patching the leaky roof, hammer thuds echoing like a heartbeat. Tara swept the porch, her hands steady, while I dragged out Mom's old recipe box, its edges worn as soft as her memory. Easter was tomorrow, and Dad's favorite, green bean casserole, was non-negotiable. Tara joined me in the kitchen, the counter cluttered with cans of green beans and cream of mushroom soup. "Never made this," she admitted, cracking a nervous smile as she stirred. "Brett always said it was Harlan's thing." "It's Mom's recipe," I said, showing her how to layer the beans, the crunch of fried onions sharp in the air. She'd make it every Easter, even when we were scraping by. Said it wasn't the food, it was the table. Our hands moved in sync, her stirring, me sprinkling, a quiet rhythm building. For a moment, I saw her not as Brett's shadow, but as someone trying to right a wrong, her USB a spark of courage I hadn't expected. "You didn't have to come clean," I said, keeping my eyes on the casserole dish. "Why'd you do it?" Tara paused, spoon still. My dad left when I was a kid. Never looked back. Seeing Harlan like that, alone, I couldn't stay quiet. Not anymore. Her voice wavered, but her hands didn't, and I felt a thread of trust stitch between us. Fragile, but real. Dad shuffled in, leaning on his cane, his cough quieter now, eyes brighter.
Smells like 98,
He said, grinning at the oven's glow.
Your mama'd be proud, Siri girl.
He glanced at Tara, then Brett outside, nails pounding steady.
All of you.
Evening fell, the trailer warm with the furnace's hum and the casserole's aroma. We set the table, mismatched plates, a wobbly chair for Brett, and ate in near silence. No grand toasts, just the clink of forks and the weight of starting over. Brett's hands shook as he served Dad, his eyes avoiding the evidence pile still on the counter. Tara passed the cornbread, her smile small but steady. Dad ate slow, savoring each bite, his hand brushing mine under the table, calluses rough but warm. Later, as I cleared plates, my mind churned. Forgiving wasn't forgetting. Dad's lesson rang clear. Love's choosing to stay even when it's hard. Brett's betrayal, the loan, the truck, the lies, wasn't erased by a hammer and a meal. I remembered his keychain gift, that teenage grin, and wondered if he could earn it back. The evidence sat there, a reminder I could still call Lena, let the DA roll. But Dad's eyes, watching Brett patch the roof, held something softer, hope maybe, for a rig that could still run. I wasn't ready to trust Brett, not yet, but I'd chosen Dad's way. Grace with eyes wide open. Brett stepped inside, sawdust on his shirt, and nodded at me. No words, just a look that said he knew the debt wasn't settled. Tara dried her hands, joining him to check the roof's patch, their silhouettes framed against the dusk. Dad leaned back, quilt over his lap, and murmured,
Family's a long haul, Siri girl. We're moving.
I nodded, the table cleared, the trailer holding steady. The fix wasn't done, but the foundation was poured, and we'd keep building, one quiet choice at a time. The trailer glowed soft under the morning light. The scent of green bean casserole still lingering from last night's quiet Easter dinner. Brett and Tara were outside, their silhouettes moving against the dawn as they patched another section of the roof, hammers tapping like a slow heartbeat. Dad's words from the meal, "Family's a long haul," echoed in my chest as I washed the last plate, the soapy water warm against my hands. The evidence pile sat untouched on the counter, a silent reminder of Brett's betrayal, but Dad's choice for peace over prosecution held me steady, like rebar in a fresh pour. I'd chosen grace, eyes wide open, but the question of full forgiveness gnawed, a loose bolt I couldn't quite tighten. Dad shuffled into the kitchen, cane tapping the linoleum, his cough softer now, eyes clearer. He held a folded envelope, yellowed and worn, my name scrawled in his tight mechanic's script. Not the shaky forgery Brett had coerced.
Found this in my drawer,
He said, voice gravelly but warm, handing it to me.
Wrote it after your mom passed. Figure it's time you read it.
I took it, fingers tracing the creases, and sat at the table, the longhorn skull clock ticking soft. The letter was short, Dad's words precise as a torque spec. Siri girl, your mama and me built this family on love, not cash or promises. Brett's got his demons, but you're the steel. Forgive where you can, but hold the line. Love's a choice. Stay for the ones who stay for you. My throat tightened, eyes stinging. Dad's creed, written years before this mess, felt like a blueprint for now. Love as a verb, not a debt. You always knew he'd slip, I said, folding the letter, my voice low. Why keep betting on him? Dad eased into a chair, quilt over his lap.
'Cause quitting on family's like scrapping a good engine. Takes work, but it's worth saving.
He nodded toward the counter where Mom's recipe box sat.
Your mama taught me that. Pull that out. Read me something.
I grabbed the box, its wood smooth from years of her hands, and found her old journal tucked inside, pages filled with recipes and notes. I flipped to a dog-eared page, her cursive looping soft. Easter 99. Harlan fixed the truck. Kids helped. Love's in the doing, not the saying. I read aloud, voice catching. She wrote, Serena's got his grit, Brett's got his charm. Keep 'em close, they'll carry it forward. Dad's eyes misted, a smile breaking through his beard like sunlight on a shop floor.
Still true, he said, hand brushing mine. You're carrying it now.
The moment settled, warm as the furnace's hum, and I felt the bond tighten, like bolts torqued just right. But that question, could I forgive Brett completely, lingered, sharp as a stripped thread. I remembered Dad's video, his voice declaring love as a choice, and wondered if I could choose it fully, knowing Brett's hands were still stained with betrayal. Tara poked her head in, sawdust on her sleeves.
Roof's holding. Want us to grab photo albums from the shed? Thought it'd cheer Harlan up.
Dad's grin widened.
Bring 'em, darlin'. Let's take a spin down memory lane.
She returned with a cardboard box, albums spilling out, their covers cracked like old leather. We gathered on the couch, Dad in the middle, me and Tara flanking, Brett joining late, hesitant, his hands fidgeting. We flipped through pages, photos curling at the edges, Mom laughing at a barbecue, flour on her apron. Brett and me as kids, grease-smeared, helping Dad rebuild the Chevy. The four of us at Palo Duro Canyon, windblown and happy. One shot stopped me cold. Easter 95. Mom's bluebonnets blooming behind us. Brett sneaking me a slice of pie. His grin all big brother pride. My chest ached, loss and hope tangled tight.
Those were good days,
Dad said, voice soft, tracing Mom's face in the photo.
Hard, but good. We stuck through 'em. Still can.
Brett's eyes dropped, guilt heavy in the set of his jaw.
I'm trying, Dad,
he muttered, voice barely above a whisper. Tara squeezed his arm, her nod to me steady, a silent pact. I looked at Dad, his hand warm on mine, and felt Mom's journal in my lap, her words a guide. Love's in the doing. Forgiveness wasn't a switch I could flip. It was a slow build, like restoring a rig one bolt at a time. Brett wasn't there yet, but the album, the dinner, the roof patches, they were steps, small but real. The trailer glowed. Photos spread across the coffee table, stories weaving us back together. I wasn't ready to let Brett off, but I could choose to stay, to keep pouring the foundation Dad and Mom had laid. Outside, bluebonnets pushed through the dirt, stubborn as ever, and I knew we'd keep building, one memory at a time. The trailer's warmth lingered, a quiet hum of furnace and family. As the photo albums lay scattered on the coffee table, their pages open to Mom's smile, Dad's grease-stained hands, and a younger Brett with a grin I barely recognized. Dad's letter, love's a choice, stay for the ones who stay for you, rested in my lap, its words a blueprint etched deep. Outside, the bluebonnets stood stubborn in the dirt, a nod to Mom's resilience, while Brett and Tara hammered the last roof patches, their silhouettes steady against the Lubbock dawn. Forgiveness wasn't complete, not yet, but the foundation we'd poured over Easter felt solid, built on small acts, a shared meal, a fixed roof, a memory revived. I packed my duffel, the course calling me back to Dallas, but the pull of this place, this family, held tighter than ever. The drive to the base was a straight shot up I-27, the Tacoma's engine growling low, the flatland stretching wide under a sky scrubbed clean by the storm. My phone buzzed in the cup holder, a voicemail from my boss.
Whitaker, site's behind schedule. Need you on deck, ASAP.
I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over delete. Dad's cough was softer now, his color better, but leaving him felt like abandoning a half-finished build. I hit delete, the message gone like dust in the wind. Work could wait a day. I'd stay through the afternoon, make sure Dad's meds were stocked. The trailer sealed tight. Family wasn't a job you punched out of. Back at the trailer, I found Dad on the porch, Kane propped beside him, eyes fixed on the horizon where a dust storm swirled faint, then faded, its tantrum spent. I joined him, leaning against the railing, the air cool with the tang of wet earth and bluebonnets.
"You're heading out?"
He asked, voice steady, no trace of fever.
"Soon,"
I said, my boots scuffing the weathered boards. "But I'm not bolting like Brett did. I'll be back weekends, keep this rig running." He chuckled, a low rumble like a well-tuned engine.
"Knew you would, Siri girl. You're the steel in this outfit."
His hand found mine, calluses rough but warm, and we stood quiet, watching the dust settle. I thought of the evidence pile, still on the kitchen table, untouched since I'd chosen Dad's way, grace over gavel. Justice wasn't just locking Brett up. It was breaking the cycle of neglect, choosing to stay when it was easier to run. Dad's lesson, Mom's too, was clear. Love's in the doing, not the saying. Staying meant showing up, through storms, betrayals, all of it. My mind drifted to Brett, hammering nails yesterday, his hands shaky but trying. Tara too, stirring casserole, her USB a spark of redemption. They weren't fixed, not by a long shot, but they were moving, inching towards something better. I wasn't naive. Brett's debts, literal and not, would take years to square. But Dad's letter, his video, his voice in my head, they were the specs for a longer haul, one we'd navigate together.
"Mom'd say we're stubborn as her flowers,"
I said, nodding at the blue bonnets, their purple heads defiant in the dirt. Dad grinned, eyes glinting.
"Damn right. And you're the one keeping 'em watered."
I hugged him, his frame frail but solid, and headed inside to pack the last of my gear. The trailer felt alive again, not just a shell of neglect, but a home, patched and holding. I grabbed my phone, ready to hit the road, but paused. This story, Dad's fight, Brett's fall, our slow rebuild, wasn't just ours. It was for anyone who'd felt left behind, anyone who'd chosen to stay anyway. So, if this moved you, like comment and share, then subscribe and watch the next story on our channel. Call someone you love today. Tell them you're there. That's the real fix. I slung my duffel over my shoulder, gave Dad one last wave, and stepped into the morning, the blue bonnets nodding like they knew we'd keep coming back.